welcome to a little talk related to the roadmap. They called it a roadmap of what's going to be coming out from GW over the next year slash into next year and all. But before we take a look at some of the things, they showed a couple models. They showed some Blood Bowl stuff and some Sigmarines, and they talked about some. Oh, and they showed a Middle Earth guy at the very end as sort of a special. But the big thing is they talked about, okay, there's these roadmaps. They were gonna going through the chat at the time, as well as my own impressions at the time. When I think of roadmap, GW's done roadmaps in the past where it's okay. Hey, here's the year, and maybe they had a little bit of stuff, but they say, okay, you know, every 3 months there's going to be this many codexes. I know they've done this for 40k. I know they've done for other ones as well, but if I think back to 40k, they give us like the first about say 6 months worth of codexes. They say, okay, after that, this is near who's going to get it, or kind of hints towards it. But they give us a legitimate. Here's what you're going to see. Here's the sorts of things that are going to be coming out. I know they've done that. I know they've done it for Age of Sigmar. We've seen that before. I know at one point for Heresy, they detailed out by season what you were going to see. And they gave us a nice long list of that. Some of it they didn't come out right and say, but we knew what it was when they talked about, oh, a brand new army. Okay, when we knew it was going to be Mechanicum at one point, kind of thing. When it was the Solar Rock stuff coming, we knew all of that. But here they honestly they didn't really do much of that at all. They kind of, if you watched it itself, they had someone from the team of that particular system sit there and talk at each other about how great and awesome everything is. And I don't begrudge them that. Of course, they're going to say that. And then, what's come out that's been awesome? Well, what are we going to see like right now? And what might you find next year? And it was very vague. I wrote down because I was taking some notes in the, I don't know, 15 minutes or maybe 20 minutes in which they did this. When we think of, say, AOS, they talk about, it was chaos and some narrative. They said after destruction and death. That's about what they said. But when you look at their roadmap, a little bit more detail. So we're going to go through what they said and also what they showed. So we'll start very quickly and let's just talk about Blood Bowl. Because they said the time they were going on, and I went on about 5 minutes early, and it was already like 10 minutes in. So I missed some of this, but I'm not really a Blood Bowl player. Don't get me wrong, I do think these Chaos Dwarves teams do look really nice. I do like the look of the Hobgoblins. I'm fine in green. I'm kind of used to Cruel Boys, so I'd probably do them in, I know those are Hobgrots, different idea, but I'd probably do them in more yellow tones. I do like to have two of them with knives for if the ref isn't looking. And they do get a very cool rule about breathing fire on people that when you do it, it ends your turn. But hey, it's Blood Bowl. Most things you do end your turn unless they go perfectly. So that one is kind of like the very last thing you do is you do that. And if it goes off well, you might actually take your opponent out for a bit. So overall, though, I do think they look really good. Me personally, I'm not a huge fan of Blood Bowl. I like the idea of it. And for anyone who loves the game, I completely understand why. I find if it's not on like a chess clock, like 5 minute round times, it takes too long. And the small die randomness nature of it, sometimes it bugs me. I understand when you go to that game, you have to be willing to, you have a reroll, and if it happens on a one, you lose your turn. It's the first thing, the only thing that makes sense to do then, and then your turn is just over because you won in 36 your shot there. So be it. But I don't know, just not for me personally. And they did show that the Bull Centaurs, they did say they're going to be Forge World Resin, but Forge World Resin's a lot better now. But the Bull Centaurs, I do think are actually really neat. And the fact you get to, I know a lot of other times you're not getting the essentially ability to buy multiple larges, at least from when I used to play. So maybe now you can. But I think that's great. They talked about the Breathe of Fire. But again, I'm not a huge Blood Bowl person, so I don't want to spend too much time going through it, other than saying I think the models were very nice. The Stormcast stuff, we honestly didn't previously see all the details, but everything they say here, especially later in the roadmap, they had previously said. This kind of been found out, at least to some extent from what I've seen. So we know that the Skaven won the battle for the start of the edition, so we found out all their brand new models coming out. Now we got all the Stormcast one. We know this is simultaneous to the time that Blood Angels are coming out, and they're really pushing Death Company. They're pushing this, effectively for anyone who maybe isn't as well versed in, say, 40k lore. The whole idea of Death Company is that Blood Angels relive the time of Sanguinius, the last moments of Sanguinius, thinking they are him or with him, different levels like that. So, they'll see an opponent on the battlefield and they'll think it's Horus. And this falling down this sort of cliff, the red thirst, all of that going to, you end up maybe in the Death Company, which means that you've effectively have to some extent lost your mind or maybe entirely lost your mind. And they just send you out when things look dire and they hope you do a lot of good and that you don't come back from it. Because if you do, Astrath the Grim is there to take you out because you're a raving madman. Not surprisingly, really, they're doing the same thing with Stormcast. We know that Sigmar reforges them, and there's a talk. They kind of talked at the start of Fourth, like this was this brand new idea, like Sigmar lied to us, like, we don't fully come back. We've known that for a while, though. That's actually been in different lore and books for quite a bit, that multiple reforgings, you tend to lose a little bit of your humanity as time goes on. So now they have their own form of Astrath, riding Morgriff Arax, which I absolutely love the little hood on this guy. I think that's a really great piece. I mean, he sees out of it and all, but kind of more of like the Grim Reaper kind of look, because that's effectively what this model is. If you're a Stormcast who's just too long gone, too far gone, this guy takes you out and gives you, your kind of your eternal slumber. You don't get brought back from this. They talk about how he has an edict memory, so he can remember all these things, and I guess he understands what he has lost, and that's why he puts this mercy upon others. But I do think this is an absolutely stellar looking model. I don't play Stormcast. I have some random Stormcasts from the 3rd edition box in my basement. I think I've painted exactly one of them. Not saying I would necessarily paint them up, but if I was going to, if I had the sort of free time to paint models, one-offs for fun, this is a model I would get, because I do think this is a great looking model. Different type of bird. I'm curious. I don't know if they said if it's a dual kit. By the look of it, very well could be. Really should be. By the look of it, looks like it is. I don't know if they actually said that or not. I was listening to the thing. They didn't say it then. I don't know if they say it in here, but it absolutely looks that way to me. And it really should be. But then you can go Lord Vigilant on Morgriff. I prefer him with the helmet, or the cloth over his head, which, if it is a dual kit, I would do that either way. I don't care what I'm running this guy as, I would do it that way. Less interest in this guy, but I always prefer my Stormcast as fully armored heads in general, so I have a little bit of a preference there. But it's got to be a dual kit. If it's not, that's rough. If it's not. They show us our new Lord Celestant, and again, I don't mind actually this sort of, almost sanguineous looking head there, but no, just arm him fully up. What don't like a Space Marine, don't leave your head exposed. Lord Relictor is absolutely amazing. Again, I kind of like his, cloaked head form better, just me personally, but when you get this sort of chaplain look to him, absolutely a very strong centerpiece model here. We'll have to see exactly all the different things that they do. I think some of these are just, coming out with new versions of certain models, but I'm sure some of them are going to get their own special rules or updates to all the rules. Lord Terminus, he's fine. I think his unhelmeted head looks kind of goofy, and he's kind of got little pointy ears, almost like an elf. Clusians, sure, they look great. They remind me very much of, so we showed before Blood Angel look. Now you have the Dark Angel. Not necessarily look, but the fact that they have, these guys going along with them, just, even the name Reclusians, Reclusiarchy, all that kind of thing has a very Dark Angels feel to me. So they're definitely, unsurprisingly, dipping into different Space Marines, probably for some amount of inspiration. But you know what? If you get cool looking models and you like it, great. They give us a few more. Stormstrike Paladors. So guys riding Griffins. I'm sure it has a crazy name, the particular Griffin. They're fine. I'm not too keen on the way they did the helmet there. I would either prefer bear. I understand why they're not going to do a hooded helmet on this, but I kind of would prefer maybe a little bit more bear. Or if you're going to armor that up, then maybe do some armor plating on the legs as well. Because like if you're thinking of say war horses and stuff like that, if that's the sort of mimicry you're trying to do here, that's the sort of thing that was done. They were more armored. But overall, I like them. I think they're fine. I like the color scheme here. I like either the silver or the very, I don't want to say odd as in it being weird, but more of odd because that's not the standard that GW usually shows. So I do like this sort of teal aquamarine sort of look that they give this guy. There, I don't mind the helmet nearly as much. I think because this is all one tone and it's kind of a little bit boring. But when you two-tone it like this, now you have something that looks very interesting. And when you compare the Stormcast Eternal on it to the creature, very, very close in tie, where here, it I don't know, I guess when you just do the other color, it ties it a little bit better to me in my mind because it doesn't look like you just did it all at once. It does look like you were purposeful of what is gold and what is these off colors. Stormbreach Portal, neat looking terrain piece. That's fine. I'm not a big fan of picking up their terrain just because price point, but that's me. And we know they're getting their book. We know the Skaven are getting their book. We know these guys are getting their book. They didn't really tell us too much about it. And then they talked a little bit. So if you didn't watch the thing, the roadmap, as they said it was, hey, chaos, and there's going to be some narrative stuff coming up. And, you know, hey, for what's coming after that, yeah, destruction and death, they're going to get some things. That's about what was said. They didn't really go any more detail than that. Not that this roadmap really tells us much any more than that. They say so far, okay, yeah, the stuff that's come out, still to come. Okay, battle tomes. We're actually getting definitive here that like Slaves of Darkness are getting theirs. They didn't say that. That's in this roadmap here, but that was never actually said by them. So we actually are getting a bit more information now, which is good, of course. And in 2025, if you read down Spearhead, so Destruction, Orc War Clans are getting a Spearhead. Gloomspite kits, though, are just getting a bunch of kits, and they said they're getting I believe they put it here. Yeah, an army box and individual Reese's for them. Does that mean they're getting their book? Does this mean Orc War Clans are getting their book? Because they only said it's a Spearhead. We know they're getting to books. We know sooner or later there's going to be books. Does that mean these are the first one getting their books? I would assume so, but we really don't know. They talked about how, 2025, all the factions, death, something at some point. But that doesn't tell us anything. I have no idea what's happening. Okay, does that mean that these are going to be the first part of the year? Because they didn't really say that. They just said, here are things that are coming out in that year. Should we expect, here's some destruction things, death follows, and then they're kind of cycling it by alignment? Maybe. We know they've followed some of that in the past, and other times they've tried to vary up the different who fits what alignments and all. It was a little underwhelming. I'm excited about the things that they showed. It's nice. I'm personally happy that my book isn't coming out right away. They talked about death more later. I'm honestly kind of hoping it's not my book because I don't mind Index. I prefer Index. I think it works just fine for OCRs. We're necessarily not the strongest. We're not necessarily the worst. We're absolutely fine. And that's what I kind of like. But we all know that's not what's going to happen. And unfortunately, when they start putting that out, then the app becomes less useful because a lot of stuff is going away. Then they talk about the other stuff. So they talked about those two because they showed models. And that was a good 20-some minutes. Then everyone else got about 5 minutes. I would say maybe not even 5 minutes, but about 5 minutes. And most of it was someone talking about the fact of, hey, you know, we've had some really great stuff this year, haven't we, guys? And then, hey, here's about 30 seconds of what to see. And honestly, this is more fleshed out than what they said. So say for 40K, what they said, hey, Blood Angels, they're great because they got Death Company things and Sanguinary Guard stuff and all this Blood Angel stuff. They said, all right. And then, hey, for next year, Astra Militarum is going to get Deathcore Creek. So they did at least mention there for the Ostermeltarm, as we see for 2025, that they are going Deathcore Krieg for this. They mentioned how they came out with a small kill team. I know at least in our store, we got at least one person paying up, maybe some more. But they're going to flush them out more. So hopefully we're going to see some other units. We're hopefully going to see it be much larger. So that way you could actually run. The way they talk is you could run a full Deathcore Krieg army. We know in the past they've had some stuff. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to mean here. We know they want much more on the Cadian side. I could see them doing most of the stuff they did there with this. I'd like to see some form of a unique vehicle. We know a lot of Astra Militarum vehicles have that sort of World War I look, and that's essentially what Deathcore Krieg are. But I'm not even so much sure what we would see. What I'd like to see them do is really go that World War I, go, Saint Chamond tanks, which kind of looks like the Crassus, but just really, one, plastic, but two, just really give them something unique and really just kind of push into that trench warfare look. But so that's something they told us more that if you didn't listen to it, you wouldn't have found out. But otherwise, other things is that, oh yeah, it's going to be a full release for Deathcore, of course. Aeldari going to get some new aspect warriors, so they're updating some of the other aspects. And they said, and then Chaos. They actually mentioned Chaos, which here they mention Imperial Knights. So they say more codex, big names, special Chaos treats. So Chaos is going to get something. But by the sound of it, I guess these are going to be, I would think, the first 3 books of the following year, but we don't necessarily know the timeline on that. By the sound of it, and if you read here, there's still to come, it says, with such a lot happening in 2024, it's time to take a breath, watch the balance, and enjoy the World Champions of Warhammer. So Blood Angels. They're making it sound like they're just doing Blood Angels. Now, what they've done in the past, we know around the holidays they're going to do holiday boxes. I wouldn't be surprised if something of these is sort of in a holiday box with a full release into the new year. We know that in the past they've done some of this where the factions started getting a release at the end of 2024, but the full bit doesn't come out till next year. So maybe we see that. Otherwise, I don't know what they're doing for some of the boxes unless they're just going to, package up something different. But if they're looking for sort of that holiday push, I think you need more than Blood Angels because you're getting a lot of that stuff is kind of going on pre-order and coming out nowish. And that's given multiple months. So maybe they do push with something of this at the end of the year. Maybe if not necessarily the, everything, but maybe a box or something. Otherwise I don't know what they're doing for the rest of it. And if they really don't have any giant grand plans, which taking a look at it for all of them put together, there's not necessarily so much, at least that they said, unless they're holding a lot to the chest, which is possible, but then don't call it a roadmap. If you're going to tell it a roadmap and you're just telling me Blood Angels for this year, then I know if I don't care about Blood Angels, I don't, because I just don't want to get another 40k army. But if I don't worry about that, then I don't have to worry about any of this for the rest of the year. I could take my Pria Nexus cards that have been super out of stock, but I think we're finally getting some in, play games, and be done. But I don't care about card, but if they're Deathcore, maybe now I do start to care about them. And Aeldari always could use some updates to some of their stuff because they've gotten quite a bit of updates, but some of their stuff is still quite old. And who knows, maybe they give us something new. Imperial Knights, I'm not sure what they're going to do with them other than just, I guess they'll come up with some other new type of knight, which they'll give a different weapon options or something. What has been nice, at least, is 40k / the heresy boxes of the plastic castigators and all of that. So that's actually been nice. But we'll have to wait and see exactly what we're going to get from all that. But notice they didn't really say much. Next one they talked about was Horus Heresy. For Horus Heresy, what was nice to hear is that one, lines that you already have are getting fleshed out more. So there's already been a lot of stuff for Space Marines, but they're going to continue to give Space Marines a bunch. They talked about a close combat kit, whatever exactly that may look like, I should say. They did a lot of tanks, obviously, because they had those from Forge World. So the same people who sculpted them there just got to resculpt them in plastic. So we should hopefully see. There's still, I want to say it was last year's predictions we did. I said, hey, everything in that main core book for Heresy is going to be out in plastic, and that's not true. there is still aspects that we are missing and some pieces that aren't there. So maybe this is over the next bit to kind of flush out the rest of that. For this, they just kind of said this year, more Space Marine stuff and close combat sets. There's going to be more waves for Solar, Aux, and Mechanicum. We know that Mechanicum, at time of recording of this, is going to get a pretty big drop in about some weeks. I think it goes on pre-order this week. So about 2 weeks or so later. They said, hey, for the next year, something new every month, which is nice. I am always concerned, is that going to be something more than just some shoulder pads or heads and stuff like that? But they said they're doing more core stuff, and then they're going to get back into individual legions. And the way they taught is maybe there's a chance we get some of those special legion kits. They said before they weren't going to go plastic, but the way he taught, I get a small impression that maybe some of it will, maybe at least for the very popular legions. And then tanks. We know there's still, especially when you think of super heavies, there's a lot of tanks right now that are not out in plastic. A good amount of the others have been converted over, but we know not everything is there yet. Saber tanks, I don't think are. Yeah, I went and checked. I didn't think they had, but maybe there's some stealth thing I hadn't noticed. I would love to see the Sabers come out, Arcators come out. They're probably the two main ones, because those are also like in the main book. I know at least because I have some of the resin Sabers, and honestly, they were a pain to put together. They really were. They didn't honestly fit. It didn't fit well. The bottom really didn't fit very well with the sides. I kind of found that as a bit tough point. But since, especially in that case, since they're a fast attack choice, that's a spot that really wasn't taken up by my Death Guard. So it's a nice way to fill in some points and give me something different. Give me this fast option that the rest of my army really doesn't do well. So I love to see that. I do want to see that close combat kit. And beyond that, I'm not sure. Said new release monthly. I would like to see them flush out more with either Mechanicum or Solar Aux. We know there's some stuff that's either missing, or again, maybe just some new stuff. Maybe same thing for Space Marines. What's something that they could do that maybe they haven't talked about yet? Maybe there isn't anything there, but and maybe with this being a little bit more of a historical perspective, maybe there isn't those sort of avenues to invent the brand new as much. We know they have some, but that's kind of what I would like to see. And they did say next month they start doing Heresy Thursdays again. Now, they put Imperialis with this, which I fully understand. Heresy Thursday might also be Imperialis as well. They essentially said, hey, Imperialis, you're going to get, we have Marines and Solar. You're going to get more stuff for them. We know they've come out with a bunch of releases actually just a few weeks ago. And they did say, hey, the other factions. So you're going to see at some point Mechanicum and Talons of the Emperor, Sisters, all of that sort of stuff. That I'm very excited for. I think, obviously, to me, it makes the most sense that they're probably going to do Mechanicum first, because they just did it all in plastic, and they said, we have these things out because we just shrunk them down. They're going to shrink it down as well. I think that's probably a 2025 thing that we're going to see. I would like to see, through the rest of this year, whatever else they feel they had to flush out. Hopefully maybe not any more books, because they're just releasing one now, and I think you could do one in the new year. But when you do a new one in the new year, because they're doing a Mechanicum, the Schism of Mars, essentially, for Heresy, you could do the same thing at the Imperialis scale. And maybe next year, early next year, is a good time to do that. Give an army box like they did, make it, half of a force. I don't think they were full forces even in those, but they get you pretty far. But even about 1,500 points worth, something like that, enough to be able to play with, to be able to put down and really start figuring out, or if you want to get two of them, hey, now you got a full army kind of thing. I think that's what we'll see, and I would love to see that early in the year. What would be nice is maybe announced near the end of the year. That way you know what you're spending your money on at the beginning of the year. I know, at least for me, Imperialis has been too tough to keep up with. There's so many releases. It was kind of a bit of a dry spell there for a while, and then I said, more than I can do. Old World. Old World, they said, hey, Chaos, and after that's going to be Imperial Man. Or sorry, Empire of Man, my apologies. But they said, oh, so far, tout up, we've done great things. And it's been good, don't get me wrong. But okay, that's fine. Still to come, nope, dwarves are out. Warriors of Chaos, we know they're coming. because that stuff is pre-order. But they mentioned afterward would be Empire Man, and now they're showing us also going to be High Elves, and obviously, hey, more stuff, and you're going to get heroes and resin and metal and army box and all of that. So it's pretty clear that in the new year, Empire should be the very first one. We know Chaos is coming this year. We know Chaos is dropping pretty soon. With the rate at which they're doing that, Dwarves and Chaos came pretty fast. So I would be surprised if we don't have something for Empire either to go very beginning of the new year, or maybe a little bit of something, maybe not the full box, but maybe some little stuff before maybe a return of some of the metal models or something like that, them recasting them or something this year, and then your brought back boxes for the following year. And we know High Elves are after that. But really, that's what they did for this. So overall, they did tell us some stuff. I don't think they did a roadmap realistically at all, or at least a roadmap that I'm happy with. For all these different properties, they said, okay, hey, next year, here's a couple things you might see. But we know from the past when they've done some of these roadmaps, they've really outlined it. And yeah, they keep some stuff hidden, and that's fine. But even if they told me, maybe a little bit less for Old World, because we know a lot of it is just the kits you've seen before. Some new stuff, of course, but most of the kits you've seen before. But if we take, okay, say Aldari. All right, we know some Aldari stuff's coming. Okay, they mentioned some Aspect Warriors. Okay, so we could speculate what we're going to see there, which ones are old enough, or they may be going to do something new. Other than that, even if you tell me Aldari, okay, you told me that. I don't know exactly what you're going to do. I could now I can have the fun of speculation. Now I can go back into my groups where I talk, and we can talk about what does that actually mean. Where when you look at it, if that's all you told me 3 things for the entirety of the year. Tell me what the first, say, 6 months look like. We're here almost September. Tell me about what the first, say, half of the year is going to look like. You don't have to tell me everything. Tell me a few more things that are going to come out. And you don't have to say much more than a name. You don't have to tell me what kinds of things you're going to do for it. So in some ways, like if you're going to do Astra Militarum and you care about Deathcore Krieg, they gave you something useful. But that's about all they told you. Okay, we know they're going to get a book. We don't know what else is going to happen, but we can go back and speculate. We can kind of have some fun doing that. But you didn't tell me anyone else than those 3. Tell us a little bit more. Tell us even just some vague ideas, so we have something more to go on. I felt afterwards, and watching the chat was the same way. I felt like when it was done, I didn't know anything. And when I went to these articles, I knew a little bit more. But even then, for it being at Nova, for it being this big, hyped, talked about thing, because they do the same thing with Adepticon, I remember ones in the past we actually live watched. I didn't want to do it this time because when they talked about roadmaps, I figured that we had to be more of listening rather than seeing things. But they showed us very, very little. The models were done in the first 20 minutes. And like I said, when I signed on, they were almost done. At that point, they kind of showed us briefly some of those models, and then they talked in a lot of generalities. To me, what that kind of says is they don't have a whole lot else planned that they're ready either to show this year, but I don't know what they're waiting for. We got about 3 months left. Other than maybe their own sort of large events, there's not a lot of other giant events that I can think of right now when we think of the events that they preview things at. So maybe they're saving it for themselves, or maybe they just don't really have a whole lot more planned. We know the stuff that's already coming out, and maybe they're figuring that's going to get them kind of close to the end, and some box sets near the end, and then whenever, say, Kill Team and that kind of stuff, maybe that gets them through. Maybe we're trying to see that they're spreading themselves a little bit thinner than they have in the past, now that they have Old World, now that they have Heresy going strong, now they have Imperialis as well, that they're kind of just not being able to fill everything in the same level they used to. Personally, I'm fine with that because I got too much stuff to work on anyway. The last thing I need is a whole bunch more to do. But it's nice, the things they said, but I have to say I was very disappointed with the overall amount of information. I felt you got to see some models for 2 things, and that's about it. The stuff that they said, half of it we could have predicted realistically. Not necessarily, in some of them maybe not, but in Old World, Once they said Chaos was coming, we kind of knew what the other stuff was. Heresy, yeah, with what they came out with, they didn't tell me anything I couldn't have thought of already with Heresy. You know, the timeline of exactly how fast they'll get to it, they didn't tell me, but I don't know, but they didn't tell me that either. So if you didn't watch it, you didn't miss much. But if you did, let me know your comments below. Let me know what your thoughts on any of that were. Were you at all energized by this? Because I know I wasn't. But that's all right. Not everything could be perfect. All right. Well, on behalf of everyone here at the show, then, has a good hobbying. It's a great gaming.